Hey, it's Egle from Precision Sourcing, and welcome to Her Heads in the Cloud, the podcast where we dive into everything happening in the world of DevOps, cloud, and site reliability engineering. With over 6 years in the industry, I've built a successful DevOps practice from scratch, helping companies connect with the top-tier talent they need to build diverse, high-performing teams. Each episode, I'll be bringing you insights from some of the brightest minds in tech, engineers, leaders, and industry experts. Whether you're here to learn practical tips or hear inspiring stories, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Her Heads in the Cloud. Pretty excited about this one as we've got Iman joining us from Atlassian today. We'll be covering quite a few topics around the site reliability space. But before diving in, I'll let you do a little introduction to yourself, Iman.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thanks so much, Egle, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Today I work at Atlassian. I'm a senior engineering manager there. I lead a couple of teams, and one of the teams is looking after the database powering one of our flagship product, Jira, and the other team is looking at how we can actually uplift reliability across Atlassian. It's quite a small team, but impactful.
Awesome. Thank you, Iman. I know you've touched upon it a little bit, but could you walk us through on a slightly deeper level your journey into the site reliability space? And I guess what also drew you to that space initially?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say I officially become, a site reliability engineer around 2018 to maybe late 2017. When I was a student, when I was postgraduate student, I studied distributed software engineering. And I remember when I was probably a few months before, when I was ready to submit my thesis, my PhD supervisor said, actually, in order to make your thesis relevant, we actually need to talk about cloud computing.
Right.
And that was it. Like there was one page where I talked about cloud computing. And then from that on, it just one opportunity to another, which is leading me into this path. While I worked as a backend engineer, as well as a data engineer at some point.
Oh, wow.
But that was quite a short stint, I would say. I should not even mention it.
Counts.
But I think the main thing is when I actually joined Culture Amp, I'm not sure, Culture Amp is actually one of Australian unicorns, quite a successful, startup. And I joined there as an infrastructure engineer. But at some point, there was a direction change. Our director of engineering at the time, who was leading, our space, said, actually, we want to move into this space. We are not doing just infrastructure engineering, but it's beyond that. We are engineers, operation is our domain. And actually, we are site reliability engineers. That's how, I finally officially become an SRE.
Yes, the beautiful transition. And having covered, I guess, quite a lot throughout your career, even a touch of data, some back-end development, infrastructure, now site reliability, what would you say has been your favorite path?
I try not to be biased, but I still love site reliability engineering. That's what my pick. It's just because, I love solving bigger problems in a way that, here is a system, it's quite big, it is structured in this way. How can we provide, good experience for our customers? But at the same time, we need to be mindful about what is the cost, to the business, what it looks like, because there is always the balance, right?
Yeah.
Because if you go looking for, I'm actually make sure that my service is uninterrupted all the time. Is it going to be at what cost though, right? These are the kind of questions you need to answer. And I love those kind of conversations. And that's why, I love it. And, in SRE, one of the things we do as a routine task we do is also, responding to incidents. So on the back of the incident, once you mitigate the incident, there is the relief, I have done something. I love that part as well. So I think I would choose SRE, definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how would you define the role of a site reliability engineer? And how have you seen that definition evolve over time as well?
So I think when I look at SRE, like an SRE is it's like any other software engineer.
Yeah,
So the main difference though is what is your domain? Like
yeah,
for us, like when you are a software engineer working, for example, on a Jira product, you are
yeah,
looking at how do we make the board appear, how our issues are created. But for us, our domain is the operation itself. Like
uh-huh.
when our customers, when they try to access their data from the database, can they access it? How often? Is it like, are they able to access it all the time? Do we know if they are struggling
Yeah,
to access our service? So
yeah,
all those things, previously one of the things you have done is there is a lot of manual element. You set up your infrastructure in a such a way that it just was not, there was no software, there is a limited software engineering practice applied. But in
yeah,
SRE, it's all about software engineering. It's all about managing your system in a way that through code, you would say you can.
yes, of course.
So we know what's happening in our system. How do we get alerted? How do you set up your alerts? That's all. It's all about writing the code, making sure that's deployed and kind of safely, it's arrived in the production, and then we
Yeah,
are aware of that. So that's the main thing. Like for me, when I look at SRE, like any other engineer, except your domain is operations.
yeah. No, absolutely. So coming from that software background, it definitely allows you to thrive a little bit more so.
Exactly. And also like if it's actually quite common to see in SR, you see two type of engineers. Some of them, they come from a software engineering background where they have done back-end development, or it could be front-end as well. They would say, look, I'm actually quite interested. I want to see
Yeah,
how deployment works. I want to understand how our customers experiences that. And they
yeah,
will be drawn into that operation element. And the flip side is you do have system engineers
yeah,
where that's their bread and butter is like, how is the system set up? That doesn't necessarily, so that will draw them into the domain. What that means, they will upskill themselves in other software engineering skills, so that
yeah.
both of them will somehow meet in the middle, to make that a site reliability engineering practice.
And I'm sure you've encountered quite a few of these during your time. But how do you handle high stake incidents or outages? And what have those moments taught you about leadership under pressure?
Yes, I mean it is. Yes, I had a few incidents where I personally caused outages, or where I also participated in resolving
Yeah,
an existing outages because of some other reason. Now there will be pressure, right? Like especially like there is when there is an incident in your environment, especially if you are the responder, if you are the responding engineer, there is
yeah,
always going to be an element of that pressure. But for me personally, what I see is what happened has happened. What
yeah,
is the next step we need to make to minimize the impact?
yeah,
It is like that is one of the moments for me is I would never panic. Right? When I say I would never panic, I'm probably panicking inside, right? But I would try to be calm and say, okay, here is the situation. Do
yeah,
we have all the people, or do we have all the tools, the system that allow us to overcome this?
yeah,
That's all I think about. How do I make this situation a business hour problem?
yeah.
Effectively, this is mitigating, restoring service by any means necessary. Now,
Uh-huh.
that's always the thinking. That's the default thinking. And even when I am, helping with, resolving incidents, that's the thing. I'm trying to make sure people are not like engineers, responding engineers are not worried about this. Are not worried about what's the next thing. You just focusing on, let's step one step at a time, get the service restored, and we'll talk about next. So that's how I see it. Now, however, this is, a kind of a usually the incidents, they happen and it's expected to happen at some point. But I
Yeah,
think for me, what I think about is you actually also have the case where you feel quite a lot of pressure outside the incidents, right? You
yeah,
are working on a big project where things might not go as you planned. Like things might fall apart. And it is really important, to even, to understand the situation and be able to guide your team in the past, because it is really important to say, where are we heading? Even also question, like, when you are under a lot of pressure, are we doing the right thing now? Should we even do this?
Yeah.
Like, understanding. It's like, because I probably use like this words, which is quite common for me, looking at what is the root cause? Why are we feeling this pressure? What is missing?
Yeah.
What's the thing we can do so that we will make it just quite normal? So
Yeah.
normal thing. Is it like because we have a lot of work, or is it because there is a deadline is unrealistic? Is there a way where we can get out of this? That's always in my head, right? And always I keep asking question. I ask the team, I'm sure there is a solution. There's something we can do about that. What is the thing we are doing? And most of the time, people are quite creative. I found them, right? Quite saying, okay, here are the kind of showing this is actually the key element. And also, people are also understanding when you say that, we want this to be done by the certain date. You ask the question, why? Why is this date important? Can we do it? And if we need to do it, what are the elements that come to mind? And that's how I apply in general for any kind of leader, whether it's incident response,
Yeah.
getting, the service back up for our customers running, or, running, big projects where sometimes they will have a deadline which seems quite unmovable.
Yeah, for sure. And I know in what advice would you give to a business to not implement to implement like a non-blame culture? Because sometimes, if an incident happens, and I'm sure it happens to everyone at some point in their career, and it probably can be easy, maybe for more junior teammates or something to, be upset perhaps that someone for that incident has happened. How do you implement a culture where they're not to blame, it's a mistake, we need to move on from it?
So I think, unless, in my opinion, unless someone did a malicious thing to cause an incident, it will never be someone's fault. For me, it is a failing in the process that will lead into that. So for me, one of the things, like, this big incident happened, right?
Yeah.
We mitigated. The first thing is, please do not blame people while you are mitigating an incident. That is actually, it's not helping anyone. It's not helping the situation. Let's
Right.
fix that. But after you mitigated that incident, the next thing is you will do, like, you want to review. You want to do like a post-incident review. What are the things that happened? What was the impact? And what are the different processes? And actually, one of the way you can identify is they can do a 5 why questions and say, why was there was an outage? Because, one of our database fall over. Why did it fall over? Like, why it was like CPU was 100%. Why was it 100%? There was a lot of, there was a specific request coming for this specific agent, and it's, overloaded our system. Okay, why did this agent, was making all these requests? Like, we have a rate limiting in place, right? Like this kind of thing, it will give you the path to understand the failing or the gap in your process, the gap in your system. It's not the gap in people, right? Like, maybe it is possible the way when you make changes into production changes, you don't have a thorough review process. So, you have your engineer, let's say, like you mentioned, it's a junior engineer, made a change, made it to production. It was buggy. So I would ask, do we have a continuous integration? Do we have actually a pull request review process? If you do we have automated testing? Do we have that in place? Like, if we do have them, what's gap? Or maybe there is a gap. We needed to add additional tests so that we can catch this class of bugs, for example. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it is the process. As long as you remove the human element out, as long as you focus on the gap you have in your system, that's the best way forward. Now you understand, you close the gap. Next time you will not have similar incidents because of the same root cause. So for me, that is the key element, focusing on the gap that you have in your processes or in your system.
That's a fantastic way of looking at it and analysing it and doing the work behind the scenes, I suppose, to eliminate the problems.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing, Iman. And that brings us to our next question as well. What does a successful career path look like in site reliability engineering?
That actually depends on what you want to achieve, because there are different paths you can take. Like, this is more, will be like, it's just it's a personal, I would say, what a success look like, because there is, you can be, if you say, oh, actually, I want to be like a principal, like site reliability engineer, or, the highest role, which for that company as an individual contributor, you can do that as well. You can start from being a grad or intern, being a mid-level senior, whatever the kind of the role progression you can get. But I think if you are from the technical element, what is really important is you are learning, like you are understanding what is the different types of systems, how they are interacting, what does it mean? If you are adding a specific, component in your system, what does that mean? Are you, like, you should always be thinking about, it's not only about making a continued service for your customers, but are you able to, if you get an extra demand, like, are you able to scale? How quickly are you able to scale? If you have an incident that happens, do you need a human intervention all the time? Are you able to, like, can you being able to think through to avoid those manual touches as much as possible? To be able to say, when I make a decision, I not only look at reliability, scalability, I'm actually going to bring cost element into it. Because one of the things you can think about is you'll say, you know what, my system is up all the time because I'm running, 15 copy of my system. That's probably not the best approach, is it? Because you are, if you are, let's say, on the cloud, if you are using Amazon, for example, if you have 15, red replicas responding, is that proportional to the request you are getting? Because it is, your system is probably almost 100% up. But do you really need all those? Or is it okay for you to have just 2 replicas, which the cost dramatically decreases, but then, you might have some outages, maybe 1 minute a month, or it could be like, 10 seconds every day. Is that acceptable? Like, these are the different things you need to be able to look at it. The more successful you are, the more you're able to see it's not a single dimension. You have to look at multiple dimensions. The other thing you want to look at is there is the human element, right? That the thing I mentioned. How do you remove the human touch? How do you stop the 1 AM calls? If you get 1 AM, how do you reduce them? You can't stop them, but how do you reduce them? So you need to start thinking about those things to be successful. This is not about the individual contributor. Actually, it is quite important for someone who decides to be, I actually want to be on a management track. I want to be, that's quite important to understand, to bring those elements, to bring the processes, to bring, the system that actually quite work well for the people you have in the team, as well as for the business.
And I'm curious to hear as well, Iman, who do you think site reliability is for? And do you think it's for every company?
So I would say, let's say a qualified yes, right?
Qualified,
the reason I would say it's yes is because I just want to make sure, like, when I say site reliability, there is different degree, where you can say, you can apply like site reliability engineering. You might have like a startup, right? Let's say a startup who trying to find a product fit. For them, one, more than anything else, cost is very important. You can't be throwing things into that. But at the same time, you'll say you need to be, they want to provide continued service for their customers. But they need to be as well okay with the fact that, it's not really, as long as the system is secure, they don't have to worry about if the system falls over, from time to time, if there is a surge in traffic, they might be okay with that, right? This is the kind of, you should be able to make an informed decision, like, as you go along. You might have a big company, and for a big company, you would think like cost might not be relevant. It's actually even more relevant, because the bigger you are, the amount of cost you have associated with your infrastructure will be much bigger. Like, with the amount of infrastructure you need to put in to make your system reliable will be actually much, much higher. it will still be relevant, but you need to see what's the context I'm playing in, what kind of, and what's the expectation of my customers. I think that's one of the key elements in site reliability is are like, if you say, if you are a heart patient, if you rely on a pacemaker, you want that's actually 100% reliable, right? It's like there is nothing that's life and days. But if you are looking at systems where, let's say, you are doing a Google search, right? If you are a searching site, you should be there almost 100% of the time. But I would expect if I'm not able to, search on Google, it's not the end of the world. That's fine. That's okay, right? I'll go back. Maybe hopefully in the next minute it will work, and that's fine. So that's why you need to look at the context you are in. But why, like, the site reliability engineering important at any level is to do, am I providing a service that satisfies my customer's expectation? Now, what will be different is when you are, new startup trying to find a product fit, maybe customers are a little bit forgiving. They would expect, they know that you are trying, this is a new thing. Your system might be out, once every couple of weeks or, once a day. They understand that, that's fine. But when your context is different, you just need to make sure that you are, irrespective of the stage you are in, you are satisfying your customer's expectation. And if you do that, you are already doing site reliability engineering.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And finally, Iman, how do you see the future of site reliability engineering evolving, especially with, the huge buzzword AI and platform engineering in the mix also?
So I think that is an interesting one because, it's AI is everywhere and it's here to stay, which is great. So for me, generally, when I look at AIs, at the minimum, they are really good at taking away things that are repetitive, things that are done all the time. So one of the example I can think of in SRE is incident response. So that's the thing every SRE will do. Like, I actually have seen some prototypes where we do have this. What they do is they will actually look at, as soon as there is an alert coming that will page, an incident responder. They will also look at the historical data, what the alert is, and then they will say, okay, based on what I know, what the alert is, here is the mitigation. If you actually execute this 1, 2, 3 steps, like in SRE, it would mean scaling up your infrastructure, or it could be rebooting your instance, in like whatever that means. They will say, okay, I have seen all the runbooks you have used in the past. I have seen this pattern of incident. Here is how you mitigate it. What I found interesting is, like, in one trial, I actually have seen the AI, like, the bot, let's call it the bot, it will take under 3 minutes to figure out what is the mitigation strategy is for that incident. And when you compare that for, an SRE who's, let's say seasoned SRE, they will get the call, they will wake up, they will see, open the laptop, look at what are the logs file, what are the different data we have, and then locating, okay, now I understand what the issue is. Here is the runbook to fix the issue. On average, an SRE will take 32 minutes. We're talking about 3 minutes and 32 minutes. It's a huge gap, right? Now, obviously, like, we need to train more this bot so that the accuracy is higher. Like, at the moment, one of the things you need to make sure, like, when the bot says this is the thing you need to be doing, you need to make sure that actually consistent, you agree with that. But at least it will cut that incident investigation response time significantly. So for me, what's actually even more exciting is, what I would love to see is, at some point, the bots not only identify the mitigation, they will say, you know what, this is the mitigation, I'm confident and I'm going to do and run that myself. Right? You don't have to call anyone else. Right? It's done, right? That's the next step. And I personally believe we will get there very soon. I don't think it's far out. We just, like, the first step is making sure that our AI bots, their accuracy is high, so that like, let's high enough, acceptable, so that we can give them that permission to be able to execute those mitigation action. And I'm sure, like, I don't I'm sure a lot of SREs will be excited about this. No one would be called at 1 a.m. I mean, I have been called at 1 a.m. multiple times, and I'm sure there is much rather, go to bed at that time than respond to an incident.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I think that's what I would see. So this is where I would say the AI will kind of replace those repetitive tasks from us, so that it will allow us to focus on project work, which, at least for now, cannot be done by the AIs.
Yeah. Oh, it would be such a game changer if it could do the on-call and the after-hours work, because it's not super fun for anyone, to be honest.
Yeah. And the other thing I have seen is actually this prototype, I'm not sure, it's not there yet. The other thing I have seen is, once the incident is actually closed, the AI will generate a post-incident review. It will say, here is the narrative, here are the timelines. This is what, SREs need to do today. But it will generate that, just like maybe it's a little bit too much text. It is the AI is generating. Not, like I wouldn't say great, but I'm sure, there is definitely a room for improvement in that aspect. So the AI is doing not only the incident, like analysis, identifying the mitigation, closing the incident, but also writing a review. That would be a dream come true, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to see what happens over time. But I guess that brings us to a halt there, but it's been absolutely lovely having you on the show, Iman. So thank you so much for sharing all of your insights. And thank you everyone else for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Egle.